It's me. And I actually look like I'm in the car. That's amazing. I'm talking to David too. I love this background more than any background I've ever loved more in my life. That's amazing. I'm just going to go and look at David. That's awesome. I have to make all my backgrounds like this. Looks like I'm kind of driving the car as well. Get out of the way, Ardle. Yeah, I'm just here with my wife and my cats. All right, David. This is so cool. Love this background. This is my favorite background. I might have to do all my games in front of this background just because. Maybe I could sit on the other side and then I could like be with the cat. It could be me, Ardle, and David. Me, Ardle, and David would be amazing. Anyway, Gridlock. Right, Clary can't be here with us at the moment. She might be able to join us later, but Izzy's having a little squawk. And she's not quite asleep. By not quite asleep, I mean wide awake and singing. But hopefully Clary will be able to join us later. But even if she's not, hopefully we'll have a nice little review. Anyway, and we're looking at Gridlock, Season 3, Episode 3. Although you could all make an argument that it's Episode 4 because of the Christmas special, but technically it's 3 and 3. And we're going to have 3 people with us today. We're going to have Real Tegan for the very first time on the stream. She'd better not screw it up or she won't get invited back. We've then got Agrajag, who's going to come and share her massive Whovian knowledge. In fact, I was thinking about Agrajag earlier because I was playing iWhovian. Do you remember that one? I loaded it up briefly. And I was like, there's all the categories and you can get like questions for the first Doctor, second Doctor, 9th Doctor, 10th Doctor, 11th Doctor. And I was like, oh my God, who could answer all these questions about the second Doctor? Then I was like, oh yeah, Agrajag, of course. And then Dashi will be joining us as well as our regular contributor to tell us his views upon Gridlock. So let's get started. Why don't you guys tell me, let's start with favourite moments. Favourite moments. So the first thing that pops into your head, Gridlock, bam, what do you think of? Use question, exclamation mark question, and let us know what you think as well. And tell you what, I always try and do one of these every single week, but I don't always remember, but I will try and remember now. Let's make tonight our double Addy Gold stream, shall we? Hey, 2 gold every 5 minutes instead of 1 for you lovely little regulars out there. We might be able to do the Make Addy Big results tonight, but we may not be able to just because obviously Izzy's still up and we might not be able to do it. But we had some problems with the Make Addy Big stuff anyway because of the it kind of disappeared off Twitter. But I'll definitely make sure I give out some prizes for it. And I have so much enjoyed seeing all the cool Addies on multiple screens and things. But we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But if you did send me a Make Addy Big, send me it again. Okay, even if it was just like a week ago, just retweet it again, just in case, because some of them disappeared off Twitter, and I don't want to miss anyone out. I want to make sure your entries are included. Okay, so Gridlock. What did I think? Because obviously we need to start with Addy's view. It is a strange episode, isn't it? Like it's just very, very, very different from almost any other episode I can think of. It's there's kind of no clear bad guy, and no, which is unusual for Doctor Who. You know, if you think it through, you know, there's nearly always an enemy. There's the Doctor and his companion are separated for virtually the whole thing. You know, the very enclosed space kind of situation of it feels, you know, it's quite, there's kind of hints of a little kind of midnight in there and things, but it's very, very different. And there's a strange religious symbolism, or I don't know if it's maybe symbolism's the wrong word. Theme's probably a better word. A strange religious theme running through it as well. There's the hymn and there's the sacrifice of a savior at the end, which allows everyone to kind of reach paradise, which kind of goes through it. And it's, I like it. I do, but it also confuses me. It's one of those episodes that's like, I like that, but I'm slightly baffled by it as well. And there's loads of lovely little touches, which I'm sure the people that we speak to today will like. And I definitely would say it's a good episode. I'm not knocking it. I'm saying it's just something that it's one that makes me think and kind of go, you know, because in the beginning, it's threatening as well. It's scary. You know, the bit pre-credits where that car is, panicked and destroyed. I mean, that could have been anything. That could have been out of like a horror film or an action film or Aliens. I mean, it's certainly the decor of the film. And David Tennant says this in the film or the show. The David Tennant says this in Doctor Who Confidential. It seems to be one part Aliens and one part Blade Runner. It seems to kind of borrow heavily from the dystopian environments of those two, and the kind of very kind of mechanical black kind of decors once you sort of start getting into the machines and things. But it's good, and Doctor Who doesn't often kind of go there. And it was interesting looking at in Confidential that I didn't pick up on this, and Clary didn't pick up on this either, and I'm sure she would have said it if she was here. That Russell T was saying that this was the first episode they'd ever done where, rather than having a real environment with the occasional CG element, the occasional CG creature kind of running past, or the occasional CG background with the actors there. This was the first episode they did where the entire environment was CG and computer generated, and the actors were kind of placed in kind of certain corners of it. Because all of that stuff with all of those cars in that big tunnel, that's the way this episode is set. That episode is set in that big tunnel, and none of that exists. And all of the little clips of David kind of dropping through it, he's not there, all of that kind of stuff. When the cars are kind of going through and all the shots and none of that's real. And in your head, it's real if you thought about it, but you don't think about it. But the point was, for them, it was kind of a step out of their comfort zones to kind of say, okay, let's make an entire environment that doesn't really exist and put our story in that environment. And it really works. It really, really does work. Which is great. And I think sometimes programs, Doctor Who, other programs, go too much on the CG, too kind of fantastic, and you lose a disconnection. But because it's a CG environment of a traffic jam, who can't relate to a traffic jam? Everyone can relate to it. Everyone knows that element of going, oh God, traffic. How long? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 6 months. So why not? Let's fast forward a few million years in human evolution and have a traffic jam that will say, oh, I'm going to be here 6 months. Not bad. There's a kind of slightly twisted reality to that, despite it being a kind of a computer generated environment. And I think that's one of the things that kind of helps it to work without it's one of those things that helps it to work without you just kind of feeling, oh, this is just silly computers, silly kind of special effects and things. It's not, because it's computer effects of realistic things. Right, let's see if we can add Teganator to our little show and see what she thinks about everything we've done today. So we're gonna call her there.
Okay, I'm here.
Hey Tegan, how you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Thank you. Could you make sure that your stream is muted so you can just hear me through Skype, and then we'll have a good little call. What would you like me to call you tonight? Teganator?
Tegan. Tegan's fine.
Tegan. And thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Okay.
This is your first time on our stream, I believe.
Yes, it is.
If everyone can give a beloved adipose posse welcome to Tegan, that would be fantastic. Let's just have a little look at what people are saying about the episode here, Tegan, and then we'll get to chatting about what you think about it.
Okay.
Blue Tech says, I love the two ladies who were life partners. There was some really nice characterization in tonight's episode, wasn't there, Tegan?
I'm
really wide range of characters.
Pretty fond of them too, with the car spotter. That's pretty good.
Yeah, little car spotter, and then that scene where Tennant was dropping down from car to car to car to car. They really kind of thought, what, you had the nudists and you had the
really
businessmen.
Yeah, really good bits.
Lots of great characters there. JWF Birrell says his favourite moment was the bit where the Doctor climbs through to the bottom of the cars, which is obviously the bit I just mentioned, but very memorable. And they said in the Confidential that was actually the hardest bit to film, because they only had one car.
One set.
Yeah, they had one set, one car, and one bottom of a car, and they had to just basically kind of make him drop from one to the other.
Have to redress it every time.
Yeah, exactly. Redress it each time, and then take him back up to the top and get him to jump through again, and then to drop through again. And more. So tell us your thoughts. What did you think? We'll read some more of the stuff in a minute, but what did you think about it, Tegan?
Just having rewatched it again, that moment where the sky opens and you get to see the sky and everyone's going, wow, the sun. It's the first time in 24 years they've seen the sun. That's pretty impressive. That's a big moment for me.
Did it get you? Was it
I was kind
the sun?
of like a little bit of a dust in my eye right then. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I also like the fact that Martha knew what to do. She's all, turn everything off. Let's go silent like a submarine so that we can stop this and they can't hear us and we can be protected. That was a good moment too.
She said it came from a movie she once watched. Now, I think it might be Hunt for Red October, but maybe there's loads of movies like
dozens of submarine movies like that. Yes.
Yeah, maybe just all submarine movies have a bit where they're like, shh,
Let's just be quiet, turn everything down. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
They won't find us if they do that.
Can't hear us.
Martha, I agree with you. Martha again cemented her kind of resourcefulness. I think Donna's thing was always that she was really, really compassionate,
right.
and Rose's thing was that she was really kind of brave. Whereas Martha's is kind of that she's clever. She thinks outside the box.
She is a brilliant person.
What else have we got here? People like loves 10NZ, loves the kittens. It's amazing how many people that is the most memorable bit of the show was this
David
idea
Tennant
of these little kittens.
Come on, you just can't beat that. David Tennant holding kittens.
Is that the fantasy complete?
It's like ooh, wee. Yeah, you really want it. Yeah.
I think Henwa said that was the only bit he liked of the episode. Henwa is so far is the only person that has told me they absolutely hated it, but. Sadly, he can't be with us today because he's getting drunk somewhere. What else do you think about the show, team?
Oh, let me think. There's a bit where they ask if Martha is the doctor's boyfriend, and she says, sometimes I think that he really needs me that way, but sometimes I think he just doesn't want to be alone. And that's a really, it's Martha understanding what her relationship with the doctor is at that point. Mm. She truly understands what's going on, and yet she's not very happy about it. Mm-hmm. So...
I agree with you. I wonder if she realizes that a little bit early in their relationship, because this is only episode 3.
Yeah.
They met, they had the Shakespeare Code, and she's already starting to go, hang on, what's he really interested in? However, I do agree that her character ends up there, but it's actually another 9 episodes until she actually kind of says, "No, I've had enough."
Yeah. Well, it's the doctor. He's still interesting, even if he's not into her. So
this is true.
Yeah.
But it again shows her kind of wisdom, I guess, because she completely works. She's worked it out already. That he's kind of interested in her, but it's more to do with that he likes having someone around. I was watching again on the confidential thing that one of the creators was saying one of the things they wanted to bring across was the fact that he's starting to get fond of Martha in this episode. But I'm not so sure I felt that. I actually felt that this was the episode where he actually started to question himself and go, actually, I'm not that interested in her. I just like showing off.
I think he recognized that was what he was doing, and then he became more fond of her as a result of recognizing that he'd failed her, that he'd lied to her, that he'd let her get kidnapped. That was when he suddenly realized, yeah, okay, I've been going about this the wrong way. So...
That's true. So you're right. There was a shift in the relationship from his point of view as well. I'm
not sure exactly where it goes, but he was so mean to Martha in the first couple. It was just he's just a total jerk.
And she actually has to sit down and refuse to leave to get him to open up. But to his credit, he does open up and he lets her in. But. I think in a way she's actually setting herself up for more heartache there, because although he lets her in, which to her mind might be like, oh my God, he's sharing, he's being intimate and something, he's still not interested.
Right.
He's not there. What else have we got here from people? We've got Shida Hari says the cat, alien, and human offspring were the cutest ever. I thought they should have had like a little mix of like kittens and human babies. Do you know what I mean? Like it was a little.
No, that would have been too much.
Too much? Okay, fair enough. Just mean
I did like the mama meows. Those were great. That was pretty fun.
Schwenke says bringing the macra back. Now I have to be naive here and say I don't know what the macra are.
Ben and Polly faced the macra. They were intelligent creatures that basically.
Sorry, Ben and Polly.
Ben and Polly and the Doctor a long time ago. Second Doctor, I think.
Oh really?
And they were intelligent creatures that enslaved a human colony to make the pollution that the macra needed to live. So, and the Doctor says they devolved, which is, if they were intelligent, they would have definitely got all the gridlock thing. They would have climbed up and got them or something. I don't know. But
well, that's good. I mean, that's another plus for the episode then, with a little reference back. I mean, I got that he knew who they were because he he named them. But he also names quite a lot of
Oh,
creatures that we've
I'll
never
tell
seen
you,
before.
when we heard about this episode, we were told there'd be a classic villain, a classic monster in it. And when we saw it was the Macra, we're like, what? The Macra? Are you kidding us? It was one of those ones that you're just sitting there going, no, that's not okay. All right, the Macra, sure, whatever.
But it worked because, like I said earlier, I don't think there really was a villain. They were more just kind of they were a danger rather than a villain. If
Right,
you see the kind of
exactly.
differentiation.
As I think Bree said it the best, the villain was blind faith, whether it's in the government or something. The Bree mentioned in one of her comments earlier on the chat.
Yeah, let me just read that out. She said, "Oh, hang on, the Adibot seems to have slowed down." She says, "I think the enemy." Oh, the Adibot's having a little think. Oh, fuck, hands off that one. I think the enemy in this episode is more so the blind faith that people tend to have, and then that's all I can read because the bot's hung. Oh dear. I hadn't thought of it like that, but yes, I guess so. That everyone sat there not questioning,
Right,
didn't
and
they?
and when the doctor starts questioning, have you ever seen a police car? And the car spotter is saying, well, I no, let me look through. Yeah, I don't know. The doctor's questioning that faith, and she finds it hard, very difficult to question her own blind faith that there's
Yeah.
somebody out there, but there's nobody out there.
Did you pick up on the kind of the or what was your view on the kind of the religious theme of it? I mean, do you think it was an anti-religious tone or just a reference to it,
I
or
I think
because there was a hymn and
two
it
two
wasn't
hymns,
subtle in
two
places.
major hymns in that. Yeah, I love the hymns because I love the church music, but I don't think it was anti-religious as much as be willing to question. I mean, every night they sing the old rugged cross, and they're stuck 24 years in a giant traffic jam, and they're being pacified by their religion and by this idea that the government's still watching. So that's anti-religious in some ways, but it's also just questioning the faith, not the faith in a particular thing, but just general blind faith. So I don't know.
Was there anything in the episode that you didn't like or would have changed if they were going to do it again, or anything that made you wince?
Ooh, anything that I would change? Honestly, I thought it held together really well. The drug, the bliss, that seemed kind of odd. When it first came out, we made the little stickers and handed out to people at the viewing party, so that everyone could have their own bliss. But that was I can't really think of anything I hated. I mean, having watched it twice in the last week, it really held together pretty well. It got better on repeat viewings.
For me, it is season 3 is my favorite Russell T Davies season. It's the season where he hadn't run out of ideas, and not that he did in season 4, but he had some great ideas. He'd clearly gone very confident in the role, and he wasn't afraid to start pushing boundaries as well. And I think shown in episodes like Gridlock and in the very famous Blink and in Human
Yes.
Nature, he was no longer kind of going, well, we need a monster, we need to have a big explosion, we need this. He was kind of going, let's put together some really unusual and deep ideas.
This was a backwards episode, like you say. There's no real villain, and it's a nice exploration of what Doctor Who can be, and I liked it that way. I thought it was very good.
My only disappointment, of course, is next week we go back to Daleks firing all over the
Oh,
place.
jeez.
But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that one then. Listen, thank you so much for joining us
Thank you.
tonight. I've got 2 more people to get on, so I must move on. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And guys, could we all say thank you very much to Tegan joining us tonight?
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
And take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So there, the full comment there from CB was, I think the enemy in this episode is more so the blind faith that people tend to have, no matter whether it is tied to the religion or the government. Although, to be fair, those people might not really have had a choice, even if they did realise that they were stuck there, because there didn't seem to be a way out. The only thing that really bugged me was, and this isn't the episode, it's more of a character thing, but the 2 guys that kidnapped Martha, and they're literally being snipped at by the crabs, literally about to have their whole thing crushed. And she's like, drive up. And he's like, oh no, I might hit the lane. And you look at the thing and it's huge and there's space everywhere. I mean, granted, they're all, they're in their little lanes, but he really, really could have flown out the way of those crabs. And it's just kind of like, unless it's similar to that idea again, that they're so ingrained in their like things they can and things that they cannot do. But it's just like, get up, get away from these crabs. Jordan, Rod014 says, I've always seen the traffic jam as being purgatory and the sky opening up as if people were going to their version of the afterlife. I agree. There was definitely a waiting theme there, and definitely a an afterlife feel to where they went to, although you didn't really develop it further. Agrajag, yes, sorry, I wasn't saying that necessarily all those episodes were by Russell T, but it was one of the series where he was in charge, where I felt they kind of started to bring in episodes that were different, which is cool. Mazu Shri says, just before we move on, I really liked that revisit to a familiar planet in the future instead. It's a reminder that all planets we've been to change just like ours and all have histories. Yes, I agree. There's been a few things like that. Series 1, Tennant, Eccleston visited the space station twice, although part of that might have been budgetary considerations. And here we visited a planet twice. And, that is a nice idea, to go back to places to see what's happened in the past, to see what's happened in the future, even to revisit old friends, such as in the case of Novice Hain, if I can get the lyric, the names correct. Right, let's bring on Agrajag and see what she has to say about Gridlock. I'm going to dismiss all of the questions there. Let's go for the ask you guys for the negatives or things you would change in an ideal world. It doesn't have to be a criticism, but it has to be something.
Hello
things
there.
You would tweak or things you would. Hey, Agrajag, how you doing? Just anything that you might tweak about the episode. Just do exclamation mark question and let me know. Your thoughts on things that you might change or replace in some way. How are you this evening, Agrajag?
I'm fine. Bit disorientated because I've changed my my daily rhythm, sleeping during the day and not the night. Well, apart from that, it's good.
You're not changing your body clock just before the Andy meet, are you? Because that may cause you issues.
No, that would be all right.
Because if you're asleep when we're all awake, it might not necessarily be quite as sociable as it.
I can always hang out with the Americans if they haven't sort of got used to our.
That's true. They have their body clocks maybe over the place. Although I think they're coming in. They think they've got like half a day to try and sort it out.
Yeah, all right. Well, it should be right.
So what do you think about Gridlock?
I really like it, and you've sort of already talked about the things I had written down. But
tell us about them again in your own words, because it's
what I really like about it is them bringing back a really obscure alien that doesn't really do much in this episode. They're just there. I mean, they obviously thrive in that environment, but it doesn't feel like they're the reason for this happening. They're just there, and I sort of like that, and that it's all the humans' fault that these things happen, not the aliens.
Well, they're not really presented as evil in any way either, just as creatures who feed or exist or who live off pollution.
Yeah. Exactly.
My thought was actually kind of like, if they breathe it in, it might be quite a good way of recycling energy, actually. Maybe we should try and breed them,
That's true. As long as they
take in carbon monoxide and put out something usable instead.
As long as they don't evolve again and turn into masters of the humans.
Oh, no. Is that what they were?
Yeah.
Oh, were they still kind of crab-like?
Humans.
Oh dear. Well, that's not nice at all.
No, they weren't very nice.
Do you think they successfully, just looking at what's going on in the chat there, do you think they successfully reinvented Novice Hain? Because she was always a bit of an unusual character anyway, in that she, back in the New Earth episode, she felt very justified in her actions on the kind of animal-human testing. Yeah. And then Doctor hugs her when he meets her again and goes, hooray! And then goes, hang on, you're bad. And she says, I've repented and things. But I actually use that clip in one of my lessons where we talk about animal testing, and people do get on two sides of that debate actually, and kind of say, she's not a bad guy. She just comes to a different conclusion.
Yeah, that's pretty much my view of animal testing. Sort of that it's to me it's wrong, but then why would it be any different from what they were doing? They were saving people by testing on people.
Like one of those necessary evils.
Yeah,
do you think she worked as a character? But this time she was very much presented as a humble, giving, generous. I mean, did that transition work for you?
Yeah, I think so. But this time I watched it because I'd forgotten that the actress, she's in she's a companion with the Sixth Doctor in Big Finish stories. So that took up my main sort of focus whenever she was on screen.
I didn't know that.
No, she's a very good police officer in Manchester who's come to realise that there are aliens in Manchester. And,
I've often thought there's aliens in Manchester.
Yeah, but she knows for sure. And when she's met the Doctor and the gossip, it travels around, and all aliens, when they need help, they contact her. So she's sort of fed up with it. I really like that character. It's brilliant.
Cool. It does sound cool.
Yeah.
What other notes did you have on tonight's episode?
Well, it was the Doctor and Martha thing as well. Like I sort of said last week, that I really hate the way they've written the Doctor towards Martha.
Hate it as in you dislike it, or hate it as in you makes you dislike the character? Like, do you think it's badly written? Or do you think
I think it's just unnecessary, actually. But okay. Then I think the whole Rose love story thing is unnecessary. So I'm not faulting the actors or the acting in any way. It's just that it's not needed, and therefore Martha she won't be able to be herself in that way, because the Doctor doesn't see her. She's just a replacement Rose. But in this one, she's away from the Doctor and becomes she saves the, like you said, that with turn the engines off, that she sort of, she survives, and the Doctor sees that and says that, well, I knew she was good, or whatever it is, something along those lines, when she noticed that they're still alive. She
does. I mean, I think what the Rose arc and the Martha arc and the Donna arc does is it gives the idea that companions have their own personal plot lines, and you obviously know a lot more about classic Doctor Who than I do. So you'll have to tell me how much they have them there. But
they're definitely definitely a lot more now.
And I like that, because the Doctor's kind of like the constant, and the Doctor's kind of like the constant one, and he does change and weave, and he does get annoyed, but ultimately he's always going to be there, because it's called Doctor Who. He's not going to be there, but the characters have the ability and have the freedom to change. And obviously Martha's is this idea of becoming a soldier and then becoming distant from the Doctor and eventually rejecting him. And with Rose, it is the love story. And, I think whether or not you actually like the individual stories, I really do like the fact that characters have arcs. And I actually felt, I think maybe one of the reasons that I didn't like Amy was actually that she was a little bit more arcless. She
had a big arc, this prisoner Zero has been watching her all her life, and then all of a sudden that went
girl
away.
Who waited, but
and then she's just all of a sudden she doesn't remember her parents, and then there was nothing. They've made a story arc for her and then took it away.
And Clara's initial one I wasn't so keen on, just because it was more like she was completely normal, but the Doctor would occasionally just give her a funny look and kind of go, she's impossible.
Yeah.
Although they did reveal that one eventually, and that was fine. Yeah. But Clara became interesting once they dropped that idea, I think.
Yeah. But going back to the classic ones, one of my absolute favourite companions is Ace, and during particularly the last series, they really explored her family and her friends and everything. I think that's kind of the first time they actually did that.
Survival and the Curse of Fenric and that kind of thing.
Yeah, she gets to meet her mother or her grandmother, and then in Survival, it's her friends disappearing, and that kind of thing. So, and it's a Doctor teaching.
I think Ace was good, and I think that I would humbly say that Doctor Who had lost quality by the time that all that came along.
Definitely.
But
story-wise,
there were still some good ideas going at that point, and Ace was one of those good ideas.
Yeah, and I mean, the way they were going to take it, if it hadn't been cancelled, were pretty amazing. And Big Finish, of course, I've done those episodes now.
The reboot, I think the reboot was a necessary, or the cancellation was a necessary evil, because I think it really did force them to firstly, it died for a while, but it forced them when it came back to really evaluate what would be a good modern show that works with modern standards.
Yeah.
And I've made this comparison before, and apologies if you heard me before, with the with Star Trek Enterprise. I was really looking forward to that. The fourth, the Scott Bakula one. But by the time it got to the kind of the fourth series, it in my view, it just wasn't good enough anymore. It was just still relying on this idea of just exploring space, kind of being interesting enough by itself, and it needed to reboot a bit and kind of go, right, so what would actually make a good show for today? And that's what Russell T Davies and Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant and Moffat, all of them have done, is kind of said, right, what will continue to make this a modern and up-to-date show, whether that's bringing in a really young doctor like Matt Smith, or whether that's kind of shift into a more kind of emotion-based stories such as Listen and things. I think it's good to have this kind of evolution within a show.
And I don't think they would have got that impact if the show has been gone on since the cancellation. I mean, through the 90s, and it wouldn't have got the same impact to people. So I think in some way that was a really good thing.
Yeah, I think the quality of the show has improved, and gives people time to come up with ideas and stuff as well. Any other thoughts, Agrajay, before I asked Dashi to join?
Well, what I do, like I said, I like the macro, but I also like the little name dropping the Doctor does, and he's always done that, and I love it. Just, when he hands off his coat, saying, "Oh, I love that coat. Janis Joplin gave me that coat." It's just brilliant. And what is it called? American Gothic. That picture that the older couple in the beginning, they really look like this picture.
I didn't spot that. I'm gonna have to Google that.
Yeah, I think it's called American Gothic. The picture with two older, a man and a woman with a pitchfork and a house behind them.
Oh.
Just sort of a little nod. It has got nothing to do with the story. It's just there.
I shall have to look at that, because it's certainly the people that work on the show sometimes do go that extra mile and put hints and references and it's nice when they do, because it makes it part of it makes it almost feel kind of more movie-like, like there's an auteur director really kind of working by.
Yeah, and the diversity of all the different travellers on the motorway is also really good, when he sort of goes through all the cars, and everything is so different.
Well, and here's to that diversity in the future.
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
Be whatever you want to be.
Exactly.
Right. Thanks for joining us, Agrajay.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right. There's a little Lizzie crying in the background. Poor little Liz. Let's bring Dashi in to join us. I want to be mean to Dashi, because I'm not going to let him talk about exactly what he wants to talk about. I want to force him to talk about Bo, because we haven't talked about Bo yet. Good evening, Dashi.
Good evening, Addy.
I'm going to be mean to you.
Why?
Because we've already talked about loads of different things in Gridlock, but there's one thing we haven't talked about, and I'm going to force you to talk about it. Face of Bo. You haven't even mentioned it yet.
One of the things I actually had not thought about discussing.
Exactly, because so we've got JWF Birrell here. He says, I would definitely change the face of Bo's death because it contradicts the end of the series. And Eschwenke says, not a complaint about the episode, but the idea that Jack is the face of Bo, and that he was trying to tip the Doctor off with "You are not alone," and assuming he would figure out it was an acronym in time to be useful, even though Jack was there when he figures it out a little too late. I have a huge argument for why Jack can't be the face of Bo, but it might be better to go into that at the end of the series. There's lots of, I love the face of Bo. I've actually got a face of Bo downstairs at Upset's Clara, because it's quite ugly. But the face of Bo is cool. He's a giant face in a jar. And here he is on his third appearance, saving the world and dying in the process. What do you think of old Bowie?
I actually enjoyed the face of Bo as a character. He's not used too often. He's kind of like that important guy in the background that you really shouldn't see.
He's the face behind the curtain.
He's the guy who gives the last minute advice. He's the, how can I put it? He's the He's the exposition guy without being the exposition guy. If you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
he's obviously kind of full of wisdom, and he knows everything that's going on, and speaks without really moving his lips and things like that. And that lovely, I don't know if it's lovely or is it just bizarre, that scene in New Earth where he, he's dying and he's in hospital, and then at the end of it he kind of goes, actually no, not yet. and just lives a few more million years.
Yeah.
because that's what creatures can do.
I think that's what Jack would do. I actually do believe that the face of Bo is Jack Harkness.
I'd like to think he is. I mean, they more or less came out and said that he is, and the Doctor and Martha's reaction was that's what they realised, and it works. I mean, how does a person that lived forever finally die? Well, he loses his entire body, swells up to a giant face, knows everything because he's lived so long.
I'm surprised. I bet there's one stage in his life where he gets depressed because he can't get anyone to fancy him anymore.
Jack moves on. Oh, see, that would be.
Oh no, that's just got. My mind's just gone weird with Novice Hayne and Bo.
Well, I just think he could get Captain Jack's midlife crisis, but just unlike most of us, he doesn't have it when he's 55. He has it about 55 million. Yeah. But do you this kind of sacrifice that kind of Bo makes at the end? I mean, I guess it kind of is supposed to fit with this kind of religious theme of almost like a kind of a Christ-like figure. Did you think he needed to die? Did you think it worked with him dying? Or how was your view? How did you view the kind of resolution of this episode?
I feel it was a really good resolution. I mean, it showed the character as well. It showed him out. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this in the right order without offending anybody. But it's a case of him as a Jesus type figure. It suits him, and the way he. Like I said, the way he was there, but the way he's not, and then you just realise this is an important event that he is going.
Yeah, the oldest creature in the universe. It gives his life to save a few humans who are stuck in their cars is a big deal.
A few aliens,
and then that too.
But it does. I do like the question of religion all throughout Doctor Who, because it really is a strange one up until you hit the Matt Smith era, where they just go, "Oh, there's a giant church in space."
Well, there's obviously that devil reference in.
Oh yes,
Satan Pit.
Yeah, the Satan Pit, and I think what's the other half of that?
And there's they touch on the afterlife, of course, in the recent series with what's his face, Danny Pink, going to heaven, but it's not. It's a computer generated box or something. So they do delicately unpick religious ideas, but they've never had him full on kind of either say I'm an atheist or I'm not an atheist. I think someone does ask the Doctor at some point, but I can't remember. I think he bypasses the question and talks about.
I think
I can't remember.
I think what they've done is basically gone from the little subtle bits that we've got this season. Then a few seasons later, we get the Church of the Papal Mainframe, which is the equivalent to a giant sledgehammer. And now we're slowly sliding back into the subtleness. Oh, thank you, Telsey. It is the Impossible Planet, the other half of the Satan Pit.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is. But Bo is. Oh, yeah, Sticks and String says, I want to know what happened with the face of Bo pregnancy. Remember that was announced on one channel with the episode of Adam. That's true, it was.
Oh, what?
Face of Bo. I'd forgotten about the face of Bo pregnancy.
I didn't even realise.
It was in series 1. And they must have obviously decided at some point that Face of Bo was going to be a reoccurring character. So they basically, any time they could stick in a little reference to him, they did, and he was pregnant in one of them, which is upsetting, both on a physiological level and mental one. The more you think about it, it's like, is it?
Not really. If you've seen Junior, you can see the face of Bo being pregnant.
True. But of course, he's supposed to be the last of his kind.
I would like to say, though, there is one bit of information I think you may be able to help me get, because you know Lee and Susan. It is related to the episode, but they did a comic about 5 years ago, or 5-6 years ago, when this episode first came out, just after this, with Brannigan and Novice Hayne as the main characters. Yeah, with Tennant. I think it is with Tennant, and I believe it involves Cybermen. I'm not 100% sure on that. But it's one of the things I do want to try and grab, because it doesn't. Because the character of Brannigan does interest me. Oh, not now. Sorry. Yeah, it does one of the few things that interest me. Hang on. Let me just put my phone away. There we go.
You got issues?
There we go.
So what else did you want to talk about with Gridlock? You said you had a few things.
I'm trying to think.
Ready to go.
The one thing was the comic. The other thing was what was it? Just the initial beginning, with all the sellers and that. It does. It feels like it's painting religion in a bad light all the way, like at the start with the sellers. Basically they're selling.
Really, I didn't get the religious connection.
They're selling you. They're selling happiness, forgetting the bad memories.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And then it just sort of became like Scientologyist with we're taking you to do this anyway, so we can get down to a faster spiritual life.
It was. I felt that bit was very, very Blade Runner. That bit, the market and the druggie. It was. You could have just stuck Harrison Ford in there, and he would have felt perfectly at home.
I think Harrison Ford would have punched all the people.
True, and then taken some anger to use later.
Yeah.
But it was. Are you with me on this kind of idea that it's a very different episode with a very different kind of pacing and a very different style than we perhaps we've seen in Doctor Who before. Although I'd actually say maybe Capaldi's series is a bit more similar. I mean, I'd almost put it into kind of the same context as things like Listen and things like that. It's not quite as mental, but it's an episode which is about themes and ideals more than it's about the adventure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is a very different episode. I mean, especially when you've got the Doctor finally basically saying, "Oh, forget the lying. I'm just going to tell us pretty much straight out what's happening, well, what has happened to my past," which I believe it took a while for him to do with Rose.
Yeah, he got close to Martha, but not in a romantic way very quickly.
Yeah.
Although that might also reflect him as a character moving on as well, because obviously when he was Eccleston, he was supposed to be very, very, torn up about what had happened and stuff, and he's kind of slowly revealing it. And, Tennant's acting, or I don't know if acting is the right word, but his enthusiasm for his home planet there is quite touching. The big eyes, the kind of like, oh, you would have loved it, type stuff he does. It does make you go, I want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it does enjoy it. It kind of reminds me of a scene from the Third Doctor, exactly, where I think it's the scene where it ends with it was the most daisiest daisy you'd ever seen. Yeah. That's it. Another thing I wanted to bring up regarding character. You mentioned Ace earlier getting a designated character arc with
Yes.
I believe the earliest version of that would be Turlo with the Fifth Doctor, because the history with the Black Guardian, and basically it all revolves around one episode, Planet of Fire, where it reveals everything about him. Oh, he's basically a deserter from his own planet fighting a war. And you don't really get that much more from him beforehand, except that, the Black Guardian's got something on him, and you just find out then what it is.
He's I think it's good. I think it gives. I think in the modern series, especially, it's become a necessity. It's part of what makes Doctor Who Doctor Who is those characters have to have an arc, and sometimes that arc means that character is only there temporarily. But that's fine. Just think how strong Clara's arc was this series with the whole becoming the Doctor Part 2, to the point that she actually starts impersonating him at the end of the series. And I think that's just it's great. It's important, and it means that I'm always a fan of the Doctor Who series that have each episode has its own individual plot line, but the whole series needs some kind of arc, and that arc can be a mystery. It can be Missy, but it can also be character development. And I think what I really liked about the recent series so much was this. There was an arc there for the Doctor, there was an arc there for his companion, there was an arc there for Missy, and there was some good classic storylines along the way. And I would put Series 3 into the same category of having good arcs for all characters and good plot lines. It's what Doctor Who should be made of. Write that down.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, Addy. It is one of the greatest ones for getting the balance right, because the story, the characters, and the arcs of each of them are balanced out really well.
I absolutely agree. Just looking at what people have said here, Agrajag says, I forgot to say the only really bad thing about the episode is that Daleks in Manhattan is next. Yes, I'm afraid that all of the nice things we've said. If you like Daleks in Manhattan, please do get on the show next week. I'm speaking to all the audience here because I'm afraid my review of it isn't going to be quite so good. Although I haven't seen it yet, and I don't actually think I've actually seen it since it was first televised, so I may be nicer to it. But I'm not a fan of Dalek episodes. Full stop. I just find them. Oh well, I'll talk about next week because we'll talk about Daleks then. For now,
I would have liked to have seen this week though, just like a brief scene of one of the cars going completely crazy. One of the cars is going completely crazy and just giving up. And
or just falling down into the crabs or something.
No. I mean, like going absolutely crazy, trying to ram others out the way, get out through the ceiling.
Oh, I see.
Basically, it's like sticking a claustrophobic in a locked closet.
Well, there was constant beeping, wasn't there? You know, beep, beep, but at the same time, I guess it didn't quite line up because on one side there was constant beeping, and on the other side all the characters were kind of saying, "Oh yeah, well, I'm only going to be here another 6 months," and so
we're fine.
You know, you'd have to have patience or you'd go nuts.
Yeah, but I would have liked just the scene of one of them completely cracking. I mean, not the kind of cracking, not the indecisiveness we saw with the kidnappers lot. Really, I don't know his name. But the guy who kidnapped Martha, him. Not his indecisiveness, basically going, what do I do, what do I do, what do I do? I just mean one going completely crazy. And just going, right, that's it, I need out, I need out, I need out now.
But I guess that was what people were talking about earlier with Hagen and Bree were kind of saying, this idea of actually people's blind faith was carrying them through those frustrations and those issues, you know, and the fact that they were stuck in a traffic jam for 20 years and were content because they had their faith in things that were coming to save them. So I guess had they have had that, you know, someone road raging effectively, it would have undone that kind of blind following.
I also like the fact they put I suppose they could. I'm going to describe them as an atheist in this case, but I like the fact they put the one atheist at the bottom. You know the Catwoman who rams them in the fast lane, saying there's nothing here.
Yes.
I like the fact they've added that. They've added basically the mass belief. They've added the ones that they've added. I don't know whether this is general hatred of the church now or religion in itself, because I'll put it out there. I do not believe in a God. I believe in something, but not God, not the current personification of God as it's seen. But I do like the fact that they've put all aspects of the church in this episode. The bad side, you've got the basically kidnapping with the Scientology side, even though I barely consider them a church. You've got the faith. You've got Sally Calypso being the vicar. I'm going to put in this case. You've got the one random person who doesn't believe, who's dragged to church anyway.
And then you got the face of Bo, who's actually saving them all at the end.
Jesus, Bo.
Hallo, quite frankly. Indeed, it's definitely it's an episode that you can really kind of unpick and pick out the themes, and that's nice. You couldn't do that every week, and you wouldn't want to do that every week. But once in a while, it's nice to kind of go, what did we just watch?
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Dashi. Pleasure to have you on as always.
Thank you for having me, and I shall see you next week for one of the strangest episodes.
Take care, mate. Bye. So that was our review of Gridlock. Thank you so much for joining us, and of course, we were looking at both episodes next week. Let's do the Daleks in Manhattan arc, you know, together. Let's watch both parts, and we'll talk about that one next week. Of course, during the week, Doctor Who Legacy, I believe, is still at its later time this week. If you're going to join us on Thursday, and I will of course be playing various other things before then. I've now finished my infamous playthrough, and that will be going up. On YouTube over the next kind of couple of weeks, but it is on Twitch if you wanted to speed yourself up with that. Thank you to everyone that came onto the show tonight, Tegan and Agrajag and Dashi just then. It's always a pleasure to have new people on as well, which was great. And what else are we playing this week? I'll be starting Far Cry at some point. Might start some Tropica. Who knows? You know how indecisive I am. I'm sure we might be able to find some Legacy and stuff. And of course, now, what are we now? 16 days till the Addy meet, or am I skipping days? But it's now, just, few short weeks away, which is very exciting. All right, boys and girls, have a lovely night and lovely weekend. Go Yankees tonight. Looking forward to the match, and I'll catch you boys and girls all real soon. You have been fantastic. You know what? So was I. Take care. Bye-bye.